Chapter 604. Fengwu's arrival reminded them of something they didn't want to recall. My poor daughter. She died so tragically, so tragically. That murderer didn't even let go of a 2-year-old child. If that child was still alive, she would be 22 years old now. At the mention of their eldest daughter's family, the old lady's family couldn't help but tear up. This was the most painful memory in their hearts. Although the old lady was sad, she still told Fengwu everything she knew about her daughter's family, hoping that it would be of help. These files couldn't be thrown away. If they were gone, how could she catch the murderer for her poor daughter? Fengwu stayed at the old lady's house for more than an hour. She asked very detailed questions, asking all the questions she could think of. The old lady's health wasn't very good. In the end, it was the younger brother of the deceased who answered Fengwu's questions. The murderer had been on the run for 20 years without being caught. This was a heavy blow to the victim's family. After that, Fengwu went to visit the other 4 families. She even asked for portraits of all the victims in the 5 families. When she returned to school, it was already dark. Fengwu had no choice but to leave the school and order a few dishes at a small restaurant outside the school. Fengwu girl was eating when she unexpectedly bumped into Irene, who had just returned from outside, and was also planning to eat. Recently, Irene had formed a mercenary group of her own. With a few like-minded friends, she did all sorts of dangerous and exciting missions. Her life was very fulfilling. Since she was promoted to the 4th grade, everyone had their own thoughts. They hadn't seen each other for a while. Irene was also very surprised to see Fengwu. The 2 girls sat together at the table to eat. Irene was very interested in hearing that Fengwu had been filling in the old files of the serial murders from 20 years ago. She loved mystery novels the most. An unsolved serial murder case with a reward of 200,000 gold coins was not a small sum. If she solved the case, she would earn 200,000 gold coins. In order to solve cases and make money, Irene asked Fengwu many questions about the case. A total of 5 families were victims in this serial massacre. Every victim was a very ordinary family, and they were all ordinary people. At that time, the investigator who investigated this case felt that it was unlikely that this was done by a mage or a sword master. The probability of a commoner committing a crime was higher, because the victims in this case were all commoners. If it were a sword master or a mage, these 2 types of people would not be so bored as to specifically kill commoners to vent their anger. It would be too degrading to argue with commoners. Any swordmaster or mage with even a little bit of self-respect would not do such a thing as killing an ordinary person. Furthermore, the continent had a complete set of rules to protect ordinary people. As long as ordinary people did not take the initiative to challenge swordmasters or mages, mages and swordmasters could not casually kill ordinary people who had not cultivated before. This was a form of protection for ordinary people. Without this law, it would be even more difficult for ordinary people to survive. Therefore, the possibility that the murderer of the 5 families was a mage could be ruled out. Mages could be said to be one of the most honorable professions on the continent. They would not be so bored as to kill ordinary people. In addition, the victims were all killed by swords. Therefore, the possibility of a mage committing a crime could be ruled out. As for sword masters, although sword masters also use swords, they had the ability. If a sword master wanted to kill an ordinary person, it would be a piece of cake. However, those victims had very messy wounds on their bodies, which didn't seem like the work of an ability user. Due to the above reasons, the possibility of a mage or a sword master committing the crime was ruled out. Therefore, the murderer must be an ordinary person. Irene looked at the relevant information and had a clue. She then asked about the love affairs of the other families, especially the first family. This was because the murderer of a serial murder case usually chose the people around him who he knew and hated. Therefore, the first case would definitely have the most clues. Fengwu told Irene some of the things she knew. Irene promised that if she solved the case, she would split the reward in half with Fengwu. This was because Fengwu showed her the internal information. Most of it was obtained by Fengwu after visiting the families one by one. If Fengwu did not give her the information, it would not be easy for her to sort out the case. After the 2 of them had dinner, they went back to their respective dorms. Fengwu still had to fill in the files one by one. She had to write down all the information she got from the victims' families. She busied herself for more than 2 hours. After she was done, Fengwu and Mingxi exchanged letters. They chatted for more than half an hour before Mingxi urged her to go to bed. Now that Mingxi had taken over the position of Moon Emperor, other than the first few days when she was busy, the rest of her life was quite relaxed. She only had to deal with some important matters herself. She could leave the rest of the trivial matters to Wenxiang. This Wenxiang was also Mingxi's childhood friend. Later, the old Wenxiang retired with the old Moon King, and the new Wenxiang took over. With this capable Wenxiang by her side, Mingxi had a lot of free time. Is the work in the document processing room very tiring? Little Wu seems very tired, Mingxi said with a frown. Wenxiang looked up at Mingxi. It's probably because she just started working and is not used to it yet. She'll be fine once she gets used to it, Wenxiang said. You have a point. Mingxi nodded and took this matter to heart. If she was still so tired after a while, he would need to find out if someone was deliberately targeting Xiao Wu and arranging tiring work for her. Otherwise, how could an ordinary Wenxiang be so tired? Mingxi's heart ached when he saw Fengwu's eyelids almost unable to open when she was talking. Fengwu spent the whole day organizing the files. She finally finished the part she was responsible for the next day. Wu Chang was quite satisfied with the Fengwu girl's work efficiency and praised her. The Fengwu girl squinted her eyes happily. She was praised Fengwu successfully filled in the files. The next day, Lian Zhaoyang also filled in the files. However, there was no news from Han Xia. Han Xia did not return to Star Hall, and disappeared for 3 days. Han Xia did not come to work for 3 days. This was not right. Wu Chang sent Fengwu and Zhaoyang to Han Xia's house to be on the safe side. When they went to Han Xia's house, they found out that no one had returned for 3 days. 3 days ago, Han Xia took her brother Han Jiang, and left in a hurry and did not return. This was not good news. Han Xia and her brother did not show up. Did something happen? Zhaoyang touched his nose. Xiao Wu, do you think Xiao Xia took her brother to investigate Hong Village's disappearance? Zhaoyang asked Fengwu suspiciously. Did she say that? Fengwu blinked her big eyes. Sort of. She said that she wanted to solve this 20-year-old mystery, and make Wu Chang look at her in a new light. That day, she took her brother out with her. I'm 80% sure that she took her brother with her to investigate the case. Ever since he looked at the old files with Han Xia for a month, Zhaoyang felt that he understood Han Xia better. That girl's temper was against the world's chaos. She loved to stir up trouble. Now something had happened. She had investigated for 20 years, and still could not solve the mystery. Why did you, a little recorder, run to investigate it? Just obediently hand in the original files. Zhaoyang complained in his heart. Then let's go to the place where Hong Village disappeared to look for her. Maybe she's there. Fengwu thought about it and said, well, that was the only way. Thus, the two had to go to the place where Hong Village disappeared to look for the girl who loved to create trouble. Fengwu and Zhaoyang went to the old site of Hong Village together, and found that it was a bare, muddy land with nothing in it. Not to mention Han Xia's figure, there was not even a shadow of anyone else. Since Hong Village disappeared mysteriously 20 years ago, no one dared to stay here for long. They were afraid that they would disappear like Hong Village and never come back. Fengwu and the others looked around several times but still found nothing. Fengwu was about to leave when Bao Bao, who had just returned from the spiritual world, suddenly appeared. Wow, what kind of magical beast is this? It's so small and so cute. Zhaoyang had no resistance to this kind of small magical beast. When he saw the cute Bao Bao, his eyes were almost blinded. Chapter 605. Fengwu and the rest looked around a few times, but found nothing. Fengwu was about to leave when Bao Bao, who had just returned from the spiritual realm, suddenly appeared. Wow, what kind of magical beast is this? It's so small and so cute. Zhaoyang had no resistance against small magical beasts. Once he saw the cute Bao Bao, his eyes almost went blind. Bao Bao, you're back. Fengwu felt her head become heavy. She immediately knew that Bao Bao, who often went to the spiritual realm to play, was back. Bao Bao. So you're called Bao Bao. Bao Bao, come over and call me big brother. I'll buy you some delicious meat. Xiaoyang smiled like an idiot. Fengwu glanced at him and calmly looked away. Who are you? You actually want to be Bao Bao's big brother. Bao Bao can be your ancestor. You even dare to take Bao Bao's place. Do you want to die? Bao Bao impolitely kicked Xiaoyang's face. His drooling idiot's face became crooked from the kick. Io, don't mention it. I was wrong, okay? Xiaoyang was kicked until he begged for mercy. Facing such a cute little thing, he didn't even dare to think of hitting back. If something bad happened to such a cute little thing, he would be heartbroken. Seeing the two chasing each other, Fengwu calmly ignored them and walked a few steps forward. There was a clear lake in front of her. There were small fish swimming in the lake. Fengwu reached out to play with the fish, but she didn't expect to feel a suction force. After Bao Bao felt that he had taught Xiaoyang a lesson, he wanted to find the Fengwu girl. He didn't expect to find that the Fengwu girl was missing. Where did the Fengwu girl go? That was a question. Unfortunately, no one could answer. Bao Bao and Xiaoyang were dumbfounded. They called out Fengwu's name everywhere, but the only response they got was the occasional cold wind. The Fengwu girl was nowhere to be found, just like Han Xia. Fengwu felt that someone was patting her face and calling her name. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Han Xia, who had been missing for 3 days. Beside Han Xia, there was a very gentle-looking man wearing a pair of silver-framed glasses. This pair of glasses shouldn't have appeared in this world, but a transmigrator came 5,000 years ago, and that guy was Longzhi Gazemore. Due to the appearance of transmigrators, many things that should not have appeared had appeared, such as glasses. That's great, Xiaowu. You're finally awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Han Xia asked with a worried expression. I'm fine. Where is this place? Why am I here? Fengwu asked with some doubts. This is Hong Village. As for why you're here, I think it's probably because you came from the lake like me. Han Xia looked at Han Jiang embarrassedly. Han Jiang sighed slightly. If there was an annual ranking of the younger sister who cheated her brother, his sister would definitely be ranked first. When she was writing Xiaoyan at home, she used him as a character model and wrote a lot of Xiaoyan stories. In his sister's novel, he only knew how to yell, "I love you" every day. Those lines gave him goosebumps just by looking at them. Originally, when she was writing Xiaoyan, he could tolerate it. As long as she didn't use his name, he could still tolerate it. Unfortunately, as the times progressed, his younger sister's methods of cheating her brother were also improving. His younger sister's hobby had shifted from Shaoyin literature to Tanmei literature, and he, Han Jiang, had the honor of being the Shaoyin sadomasochistic male protagonist, had changed to Tanmei literature. The colleagues who were lucky enough to read his sister's novel began to doubt whether he really had such thoughts. Some of the good-looking male colleagues now walked away quickly when they saw him. They kept calling out to him, making him almost think that he had really started to fall in love with men. In order to not be cheated by his sister, he used his good friend's relationship and sent his sister to work in the archives and documents processing room of Star Hall. He didn't expect that his great sister would continue to cheat her brother even after working in Star Hall as a clerk. She didn't know how to write the records, so he wrote it for her. She didn't know how to fill in the files, so he wrote it for her again. Now, when he wanted to find out the truth of Hong Village's disappearance, he was asked to do it again. In the end, he was sucked into this closed world. He originally wanted to pull his sister back, but he didn't expect that he would also be in trouble. Who did he offend? It was tiring to have such a sister who cheated her brother. Although his sister cheated him too much, Han Jiang still couldn't bear to blame her. Both of their parents died. He, the brother, started to raise his sister who was 7 years older than him since he was 15 years old. For more than 10 years, he was both a father and a mother. He was cheated by his sister since he was young. He never had the heart to really blame Han Xia. Although this girl cheated her brother a little, she was still not bad. At least she knew how to blame herself. Knowing how to blame herself, there was still hope. Fengwu touched her forehead and carefully recalled. She was playing by the lake, and then there was no then. She seemed to be pulled forward by something, and then she didn't know what happened. People said that this is Hong Village? The village that disappeared? Fengwu's face was expressionless, and her small eyebrows were knitted. Yes, it's that Hong village. Do you believe it? Hong village was sealed. Everyone here can only enter and can't leave. So this is the secret of Hong village's disappearance. When I tell the boss will definitely look at me differently, hee. Thinking of the scene of her being praised, the girl was already intoxicated here. Hee, you better stop thinking about those ideas. We are now trapped in this place and don't even know how to get out. You still want to be looked at differently? It's faster to dream. Han Jiang patted his stupid sister's head. Could this girl be more realistic? At this time, she was still imagining things. That's right. We can't get out now. No matter how great my contribution is, the boss won't know. This fact hit Han Xia to the ground. This was a ruthless, shameless, and unreasonable world. Is there really no way out? Feng Wu's eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She still wanted to find Xiao Yi, Master, and Mingxi. If there was a way, we would have gone out long ago. Let's go. Let's go to the place where we live. The villagers of Hong Village are still good. They don't reject us outsiders who accidentally came here. They even gave us a thatched hut. Although the thatched hut is not very big, it's enough for the three of us. Feng Wu was brought back to the house where they temporarily lived by the brother and sister. This house was just a somewhat shabby thatched hut, but fortunately, it could shelter them from the wind and rain, so they didn't have to sleep on the streets. On the way back to the thatched hut, the brother and sister skillfully greeted the villagers they met on the way. This morning, the villagers were still very pure. No one was hostile to Feng Wu's arrival. To outsiders, they were all welcoming. Chapter 606. Feng Wu was brought back to the house that they were temporarily staying in by the siblings. The house was just a shabby thatched hut, but at least it could provide shelter from the wind and rain, so they did not have to sleep on the streets. On the way back to the thatched hut, the siblings skillfully greeted the villagers they met along the way. The villagers in the morning were all pure servants, and no one was hostile towards Feng Wu's arrival. Towards outsiders, they were all welcoming. Hong Village was now isolated from the rest of the world, and no one could leave this place. Their understanding of the outside world was limited to the sudden arrival of outsiders. Therefore, Hong Village was very welcoming of outsiders. After returning to the thatched hut, Han Xia wanted to pour some water and make some food for Feng Wu, but before she could do so, she was stopped by Feng Wu. As a young girl who loved to eat, the only thing she could lack was food. Feng Wu took out 2 roasted chickens from her interspatial ring, as well as several roasted fish. Ever since they came here 3 days ago, the siblings could only eat some of the simplest vegetarian dishes with the villagers. They hadn't even had a bite of meat. This place was isolated from the rest of the world, and if they wanted to eat meat, they could only eat the few meat beasts raised by the villagers themselves. These meat beasts were low-grade beasts that were commonly seen on the dining tables of Heavenly Wind Continent. Meat beasts did not have much attack power, but their meat quality was good, and were very suitable for the dining table. Therefore, many commoners would raise some meat beasts for their own consumption, and if there were more, they could be sold. Meat beasts were originally not something precious, but in this place, they were absolutely precious. Usually, the villagers did not eat meat, and would only kill a meat beast on special occasions. Then, each family would share some of the meat, and everyone would bask in the festive atmosphere. Therefore, in the 3 days that they had been here, the siblings had not eaten a single bit of meat. After the siblings and Feng Wu ate the 2 roasted chickens and a few fat fish, they felt as if they had come back to life. In this place there is no meat at all. I am a carnivore, and if I were to stay here for the rest of my life, I would definitely not be able to survive. Han Xia held the roasted chicken in her hand, and licked it, as she looked at the chicken bones with reluctance. Don't be discouraged, we will always be able to leave this place. Touching his sister's head, Han Jiang could only comfort her in this way. In fact, even he didn't know if he could leave this place. This place had trapped these villagers for 20 years. The Star Hall had sent people to check on them several times, but they didn't find anything unusual. If they wanted to leave now, unless the Star Hall could discover the secret of their lake, the people outside wouldn't be able to find them no matter how powerful they were. Brother, have you washed your hands? Han Xia slapped her brother's hand away. She was no longer sad. How dare he touch her head with the same hand that grabbed the roast chicken? Bad brother must have done it on purpose. The news of Fengwu disappearing at the original location of the flood village was spread to the Star Hall. Together with the Hanxia siblings, Fengwu was the third person to go missing. Moreover, all three of them had been to the flood village. No wonder the three of them suddenly disappeared just like the flood village in the past. The one who was sent to investigate was a juror. When he found out that Fengwu had gone missing in this place, he immediately took the initiative to come and investigate. Unfortunately, Mingxi circled the place a few times and didn't find anything unusual. Bao Bao blinked his round eyes. In the water, there might be something wrong with the lake. What did you find? A juror approached Bao Bao and asked. I remember that Xiao Wu walked in the direction of the lake. After that, she disappeared. So there must be something wrong with the lake. Bao Bao said with certainty. Are you sure that Xiao Wu walked in this direction? A juror asked. Bao Bao nodded. He was very sure that he didn't see wrong. As for the other Zhao Yang, he didn't notice this at all. Bao Bao and a juror walked to the lake together. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with the lake. It looked so clear that one could see the bottom. There were only some stones at the bottom of the lake. There was nothing else. A juror looked around and couldn't see anything strange, but Bao Bao wouldn't lie. He squatted down and cupped the water in his hands. He watched the water flow through his fingers. The water was very cold, but there was nothing wrong with it. At that moment, a juror felt his body being grabbed by something. His whole body fell into the water and disappeared. Bao Bao reacted and immediately jumped into the water. Bao Bao, who jumped into the water, disappeared mysteriously just like a juror. Zhao Yang was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. What kind of paste was this? Could it eat people? No, he had to hurry back and report to boss. Zhao Yang didn't dare to delay. He rushed in the direction of Star Hall. And Mingxi, who had been sucked into the water, woke up in another world. He opened his eyes. It was the same blue sky and white clouds. The lake was still the same lake, but behind him, it changed from a piece of land to a small mountain village. There were about 100 families in this village. Everyone had a pure servant's smile on their faces as they worked hard in the fields. This place is incredible. No wonder we couldn't find it. It's a space magic equipment, Bao Bao said, shaking his head. He had a look of realization on his face. Forget it, since we're here, it means Xiao Wu and the others must be here too. Let's look for Xiao Wu first. The man and the beast walked around the village while looking around. The villagers would greet them in a friendly manner. A juror soon found the whereabouts of Fengwu and the other two missing people from the villagers. Fengwu and the others had just finished eating. The brother and sister were planning to bring Fengwu out for a walk to help with digestion. To their surprise, they bumped into someone familiar as soon as they left the village. Xiao Wu. A juror excitedly ran up to Fengwu and spun her around. He put her down and checked her carefully to make sure she was not injured. Xiao Wu, Bao Bao immediately ran into Fengwu's arms. His little body was acting cute in front of the Fengwu girl's not-so-developed chest. Why are you two here too? Fengwu was a little surprised. She did not expect to see a juror and Bao Bao so soon. Bao Bao said he saw you walking to the lakeside and then disappearing. I wanted to go to the lakeside to see if there was anything wrong, but I didn't expect to be sucked into a place like this, said a juror indifferently. Xiao Wu, don't worry. It's just a space magic equipment. However, the level of this magic equipment is pretty high. It's at least a sacred weapon. No wonder the people of the Star Hall couldn't find anything after so many attempts, said Bao Bao. You're saying we're inside a space sacred weapon? Exclaimed Hanxia. A space sacred weapon? That was no ordinary thing. Why would a treasure of that level appear in a small village? It didn't make sense. Chapter 607. Why are you two here too? Fengwu was a little surprised. She did not expect to see a juror and Bao Bao so soon. Bao Bao said he saw you walk to the lakeside and then disappear. I wanted to go to the lakeside to see if there was anything wrong, but I didn't expect to be sucked into this place, a juror said indifferently. Xiao Wu, don't worry, it's just a space magic equipment, but its level is pretty high. It's at least a sacred weapon. No wonder the people from the Star Hall couldn't find anything despite coming here so many times, Bao Bao said. You're saying we're inside a space-sacred weapon? Han Xia exclaimed. A space-sacred weapon? That was no ordinary thing. How could a small village have a treasure of that level? It didn't make sense. You can say that. Someone must have used a space-sacred weapon to isolate the village from the rest of the world, Bao Bao said after thinking for a while. You're saying that all of this was caused by the people in the village, but why would they do such a thing? If they were locked up in a space without freedom, would they be happy? Han Xia really couldn't understand. Would there be people who would draw a prison for themselves and lock themselves up? It's also possible that it was done by one person. Not all the villagers were involved, Han Jiang said. Then let's find the person who sealed the village with a space-sacred weapon. Once we find that guy, we should be able to leave this place, Ajur said. But there are so many people in the village. I'm afraid it won't be easy to find that person, Han Jiang said. Let's take our time. We can't just sit here and wait for someone to save us. Ajur rolled his eyes. He was never the kind of person who would wait for someone to save him. As a sacred envoy of the Star Hall, it would be too embarrassing to wait for someone to save him. By the way, what's your name? Are you Xiao Wu's boyfriend? Han Xia asked curiously. My name is Ajur. I'm Star Hall Xia Jixia. As for me and Xiao Wu, we're best friends, brothers, or siblings. You can choose whichever relationship you like. I don't mind. Ajur said with a shrug. Oh, it's Lord Envoy. I'm Han Jiang, the clerk of the arbitration tribunal. I'm responsible for recording the documents and files of the arbitration tribunal. This is my sister Han Xia. She's the clerk of the Star Hall. She's not in charge of much work as I am. However, this girl still needs to study hard before she can truly grow up. Han Jiang introduced the siblings. This was the first time he had met the newly appointed Saint Emissary Xia. He had met Chen, Xiao and Dong before, but he had heard that Xia's appointment had been delayed due to personal reasons. He did not expect that their first meeting would be in such a place. The arbitration tribunal had often dealt with the Four Seasons Saint Emissaries, so they were quite familiar with them. Of course, this was the first time he had met Xia. However, as long as he was still a Saint Emissary in the Star Hall, they would become familiar with each other sooner or later. In any case, with Xia by his side, he had a little more confidence in getting out. Even if the Star Hall wanted to save Saint Emissary Xia, they would definitely go all out to open a path to save her. Moreover, the Saint Emissaries had inherited artifacts in their hands. With the artifacts in their hands, even if no one came to save them, he believed that they would be able to think of a way to leave. Han Jiang thought about it again and again. No matter how he thought about it, he felt that the hope of leaving had increased by more than half with the arrival of Xia. In order to find the person who sealed the village, Feng Wu and the others circled around the village. Han Jiang had nothing to do and chatted with the old ladies here. He was also very familiar with those old men and women. In order to find the person who sealed the village, they circled around the village for 2 days. During these 2 days, they met some people who had fallen to this place for various reasons like them. In order to survive, these people had no choice but to start farming to support themselves like the villagers. No matter how strong you were when you came to this place, you had to work hard to fill your stomach. Don't you think it's strange? Those outsiders, their attitude is too strange. Ajur said. I feel the same. The 2 brothers we met today are obviously not good men and women. They actually obediently farm in the village, and did not snatch other people's vegetables. This made me very surprised. Han Jiang felt the same way. The 2 brothers they met today, from their eyes and aura, they could tell that they were not good people. It was not strange that such people who wandered to this kind of village where there were only ordinary people, did not bully the weak. From his perspective, he did not think that those 2 people would be principled people who wanted to hurt ordinary people. Could it be that there is something about those villagers that they are afraid of? Han Xia said. Who could it be that made those 2 brothers so afraid that they did not dare to touch a single brick or tile of the villagers? Or could it be that they have done it before, but were taught a lesson, so they did not dare to do it again? Also, these villagers are smiling no matter who they see here. Aren't they afraid of meeting bad people? Aren't they afraid that these people will force them to become the slaves of the strong? The strange attitude of the villagers, and this world that was sealed by the space sacred tool. What secrets were hidden inside? Fengwu and the others were investigating the sacred tool in Hong Village. Zhao Yang had also called a large group of people to help find Fengwu and the others. This time, the Star Hall had sent a space great mage saint. This was a space magic saint who specialized in the space element. His strength was also ranked among the top in the Star Hall. There seems to be a strange space on the other side of this lake. The space magic saint concluded after checking it out. Could it be a space opened by a magic duel? It seemed like only a magic saint could open up a space. No, it should be a small space opened up by a piece of magic equipment. Furthermore, the level of the magic equipment is not low. It is at least a sacred tool. If it was not a sacred tool, it would not be able to hide its aura so well. If I did not come here today, and it was a magic saint of other elements, they would also not be able to detect the spatial fluctuations on the other side. Sir, what should we do now? Should we destroy this space and save Xiao Wu, the sacred envoy, and the others? Zhao Yang gestured excitedly. Now is not the time. Let me think about it again. Suddenly, the space distorted, and the space magic saint disappeared just like that. He disappeared. Important things had to be said 3 times. Xiao Wu, Xiao Xia, and Master Ajur, you must hold on. The magic saint must be thinking of a way to save you. Zhao Yang stood by the lake and said to the lake water. Fengwu and the others did not know that the Star Hall had sent people to save them. They were still looking for the person who had collected the sacred tool and used it to seal this place. After 2 days of investigation, they found that the most suspicious person was the village chief's daughter, Lai Yi. 20 years ago, a sword master near the village had taken a fancy to Lai Yi and wanted to force her to be his concubine. Lai Yi already had a fiancé who was her childhood sweetheart. Naturally, she could not accept a man she did not know and become his concubine with a bad reputation. Lai Yi was just an ordinary person, but she had never thought of marrying a swordmaster or a mage. She only wanted to marry her lover and live happily for the rest of her life. However, the appearance of that person changed everything. He sent people to surround the village and asked the village chief to hand over his daughter. He didn't send people to attack, but just surrounded the village. Day after day, the encirclement lasted for 7 days. On the 8th day, the villagers realized that the people surrounding the village had disappeared. They seemed to be trapped in the village forever and could no longer leave. Being unable to leave the village was not a big deal to these villagers. As long as they were not harassed by those bullies, being isolated from the world was not unacceptable. The villagers continued living their lives. It wasn't until the first outsider came to their village that they realized that it wasn't the villains who had disappeared, but them. After that, a few more earthlings arrived one after another. Like the people in the village, they were unable to leave. Some of them had thought of leaving this isolated world through the lake, but it seemed that the passageway at the bottom of the lake only allowed entry and not exit. No one could return by the original route. In the past 20 years, there had been 10 outsiders who had accidentally entered this place. These outsiders had now become accustomed to life in the village. They did not cause any trouble in the village. Everyone lived and worked in peace and happiness. This was the news that Han Jiang had heard when he went out. He was certain that some of the outsiders had been concealed, but if the locals didn't say anything, and the outsiders didn't want to say anything, they couldn't find out anything even if they wanted to. Chapter 608. The people in the village continued to live their lives. It was not until the first outsider came to their village that they realized it was not the villains who had disappeared. It was them who had disappeared. After that, a few more earthlings arrived one after another. Like the people in the village, they were unable to leave. Some of them had thought of leaving this isolated world through the lake, but the passage at the bottom of the lake seemed to only allow entry and not exit. No one was able to return by the original route. In the past 20 years, there had been 10 outsiders who had accidentally entered the village. These outsiders had now become accustomed to life in the village. They did not cause any trouble in the village. Everyone lived and worked in peace and happiness. This was the news that Han Jiang had heard when he went out. He was certain that some of the outsiders had been kept a secret. However, if the locals did not say anything, and the outsiders did not want to say anything, they could not find out anything even if they wanted to. That is why Lai Yi is the most suspicious. She is most likely the person who sealed the village. Han Xia said softly as he sipped the juice that Feng Wu had brought out. That's right, but this is all just my guess. I can't be sure if it's her, Han Jiang said. Looks like we have to keep an eye on Lai Yi. How is she now? Did she marry her childhood sweetheart? Ajur pushed the empty cup away. They got married 20 years ago. On the 7th day after the village was sealed, the village chief's family hurriedly held a wedding for them. One of their children is already 18 years old, and the younger one is already 12, Han Jiang said. With Lai Yi as a lead, they decided to keep an eye on Lai Ye's family, hoping to find something useful. Lai Ye's family was like a normal family. They worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. Lai Yi was already 30 years old. Normal people who did not practice magic or combat aura could not maintain their youthful appearance. That was why the 38-year-old Lai Ye's face already had traces of age. However, these traces did not detract from her beauty. It was no wonder that the swordsman had spent so much effort to marry Lai Yi. Lai Yi was probably a stunning beauty 20 years ago. Lai Ye's husband was called Carmen. He was the village's blacksmith. He was a very honest person. When Lai Yi and Carmen were together, their eyes were very gentle. When the two of them interacted, they were filled with love and warmth. No wonder Lai Yi was unwilling to marry the swordsman she had never met before. Lai Yi must love this man very much. While they're all here, let's go to her house and see if there's anything we suspect to be a sacred artifact. Han Xia said. What he said made sense. Thus, the four of them left Han Jiang to keep watch while the others went to the Lei family to find the sacred relic. However, when the Lai Yi family returned, they still didn't find anything. Mingxi and company still didn't find anything. The four of them returned to the straw hut in disappointment. Why is there nothing here? Lai Yi is clearly an ordinary person who has never cultivated before. Where could she have hidden the sacred artifact? Did you all make a mistake? Was the one who sealed the village really Lei? Baby said casually as he munched on a lollipop. Lord Baby, did you discover something? Han Xia immediately ran to Baby's side and flattered him. Baby did discover something. In fact, 20 years ago, other than the incident with Lei, something else happened. Baby was very satisfied with this flattery, so he said with a mysterious expression. Something else? That can't be. I've already heard about the big incident 20 years ago. There's nothing I don't know. Han Jiang couldn't figure out what Baby was talking about. 20 years ago, an old widow at the east side of the village had two beautiful daughters. The old widow and her two beautiful daughters depended on each other. Because the widow was deceived by a man, she told her daughters to never trust a man. In the end, her eldest daughter and second daughter fell in love with men outside the village. The two men also came to the village to propose marriage. Unexpectedly, the old widow strongly opposed it. She beat her two daughters so badly that they couldn't even get out of bed. She even warned the men that the two daughters liked not to get close to her daughters. The old widow's power was unbearable for the two daughters. In the end, the two couples agreed to elope. Unfortunately, the day before they decided to elope, the swordsman suddenly came to the village and wanted to forcefully marry the village chief's daughter. He even sent people to surround the village. The old widow's two daughters didn't elope successfully because of this incident. On the 8th day, the village was sealed. Then, the two daughters were trapped in the village and haven't married yet. These things happened at the same time, but even fewer people knew about it. If it hadn't flown around the village to eavesdrop, it wouldn't have heard about this secret. You suspect that the old widow sealed the village in order to prevent her daughter from leaving her and marrying off. If this guess was true, that old woman was really perverted. Han Xiao's scalp went numb when he thought about having such a scary mother. Why didn't the two of them get married? Even if they didn't marry outsiders, they could have married villagers. Han Xiao was puzzled. Their mother is really crazy. Because she felt that she had suffered at the hands of men. She thought that all men in the world were bad. She didn't allow her daughters to get close to men, didn't allow them to talk to men, and didn't allow them to marry. Anyway, she wanted her 2 daughters to die alone like her. Bao Bao rolled his eyes. Thinking about that crazy old woman, his heart was filled with panic. If it's that crazy old woman who sealed the entire village, she would definitely do it. Ajur thought about the old widow that Bao Bao mentioned. That image was as crazy as it could be. Everyone unanimously agreed that the crazy old widow was a great suspect, and her suspicion was much greater than Lai Ye's. In order to find out if it was the old widow who did it, they went to the old widow's house in the dark to find out the truth of the matter. Unfortunately, the old widow's room was tightly locked. She didn't even leave a single window open. If they wanted to find out if she did it, it wouldn't be easy. This village was strange. If they casually used magic or scrolls, who knew what unexpected consequences would occur? To be safe, the 4 of them didn't use magic or doqi. They searched the old widow's yard for a long time, but didn't find anything suspicious. As for the old widow's 2 daughters, if there really was a sacred relic that could seal the entire village, she definitely wouldn't put it in the room of her 2 daughters who wanted to escape at any time. Therefore, it was most likely placed in the old widow's room. The old widow's room was tightly locked. They couldn't find a way in even if they wanted to. No wonder. The next day, they continued to keep an eye on the old widow's family. They discovered that apart from her 2 daughters who were working every day, the old widow didn't even leave the house. How were they going to enter the house to find the sealed saint artifact? Finally, after 2 days of watching, the old widow went out on a full moon night. When she went out, she was wearing a black cloak. Her whole body was wrapped in the cloak. Not even a bit of flesh was exposed. While the old widow went out, they immediately went into the old widow's room to find the sealed sacred relic. Bao Bao was sent to follow the old widow to see what she wanted to do so late at night. The old widow's room was pitch black. There wasn't even a shadow in the room. Han Xia took out a flint and lit it up. When she saw the things in the room, Han Xia suddenly forgot where she was and screamed in fear. This scream immediately attracted the sound of footsteps. There was no doubt that the 2 people running were the old widow's poor daughters. The 2 sisters knew that the old widow wasn't in the room. So when they suddenly heard the scream of a stranger, the 2 sisters immediately rushed into their mother's room with kitchen knives. "It's you outsiders? What are you doing in my mother's room?" The 2 sisters vigilantly looked at Fengwu and the other outsiders. "You don't have to worry. We just came to find a way out." Ajur raised his hands to show that he didn't mean any harm. Chapter 609. The scream immediately attracted the sound of footsteps. There was no doubt that the 2 people who ran over were the poor daughters of the old widow. The 2 sisters knew that the old widow was not in the room, so when a stranger suddenly screamed, the 2 sisters immediately rushed into their mother's room with kitchen knives. "It's you outsiders? What are you doing in my mother's room?" The 2 sisters looked at Fengwu and the other outsiders warily. "Don't worry, we're just here to find a way out." Ajur raised his hands to show that he had no evil intentions. "If there was a way out of here, we would have left long ago. It's a waste of effort for you to come to our house." The 2 sisters saw that Ajur did not have any evil intentions, and their expressions became slightly better. "That's not necessarily true." Han Jiang suddenly said mysteriously. "What do you mean?" The 2 sisters looked at each other, and some of them did not understand why this gentle young man would say that. "To make a long story short, we suspect that it was your mother who sealed the village. Even if it wasn't her, she must have been involved." Han Jiang said with certainty. "You're saying that our mother was the one who sealed the village back then? But that's impossible. Mother is just an ordinary person. How could she have the ability to do this?" The younger sister of the 2 sisters widened her eyes in disbelief. How could she believe that her mother, an ordinary person, could do such a mysterious thing? Needless to say, I believe that she did it. The elder sister looked as if she had expected it. Obviously, she had already suspected it, but she was not sure. "Elder sister, don't forget that mother is just an ordinary person. How could she do such a thing?" Because their mother was just an ordinary person. This was also an important reason why the younger sister did not believe it. Oh, an ordinary person? You really believe that she's an ordinary person? Look at what's in her room. What are these? The elder sister pointed to a pile of bottles and jars in the room. These jars were actually filled with some powerful poisonous insects, and some of the transparent jars had terrible insects crawling inside. The reason why Han Xia screamed just now was because she saw these terrible insects. Han Xia was afraid of all kinds of insects since she was young. It would be strange if she did not scream when she saw so many of them. Those goo worms. The younger sister was speechless. How could someone who knew how to raise goo worms be an ordinary person? She's coming back. Fengwu suddenly received Bao Bao's voice transmission. No, leave immediately. Tomorrow, we sisters will think of a way to contact you. It'd better be a woman who contacts us. If mother sees us talking to men, she'll be suspicious. The elder sister said as she pushed Fengwu and the others out of the old widow's room. She then turned around and put the door back to its original state. She then let Ajur and the others out of the old widow's house through the back door. They had just left from the back door when the old widow came in from the front, so they just missed each other. Seeing that the old widow had returned to the house, Ajur and the others didn't dare to stay for long. They immediately returned to the straw hut they were temporarily staying in under the moonlight. Baby, did you discover anything after following that old woman all the way? Ajur asked immediately after taking a sip of water to calm himself down. There's a major discovery. Guess who I saw her meeting? Bao Bao kept them in suspense. Everyone shook their heads. There were so many people on the island. Who knew who the old widow had gone to meet? The person she went to meet was Lai Yi. Bao Bao dropped a bombshell. No way, Lai Yi is in cahoots with that old widow. Han Xia felt that he had to drink a cup of water to calm himself down. It was unbelievable that the beautiful, gentle, and virtuous Lai Yi was in cahoots with the old widow. And I have another major discovery, Bao Bao added. What is it this time? Are you going to say that Lai Yi's whole family is in cahoots? Ajur rolled his eyes, despising Bao Bao for keeping them in suspense. How is that possible? I want to say that the old widow is no longer human. Bao Bao looked at the confused faces of the 4 people around him with a smug look. Actually, there were only 3 people who were confused. The Fengwu girl had a poker face to begin with, so it was impossible to tell if she was confused from her poker face. I noticed it too. There's a rotting smell in her room. It's the smell of a rotting corpse. The Fengwu girl looked at Bao Bao and said, Xiaowu, when did you notice it? Han Xia asked in surprise. I noticed it as soon as I entered her room. The Fengwu girl said, so that old widow is a dead person. How scary. A dead person can actually move. Lu Xia felt a chill run down his back. Yes, but she's not a normal dead person. She should be called a walking corpse. That old widow is a walking corpse. Bao Bao said. A walking corpse. That's quite fitting. Han Jiang nodded. What do you mean by appropriate? She's just a corpse, and she can move and talk on her own. She even lives with her 2 daughters. Just thinking about it is enough to scare me to death. Why are you still talking about whether it's appropriate or not? Han Xia rubbed the goosebumps on his arms. Why did it feel so cold? Walking corpses are the lowest level of creatures. Walking corpses don't have intelligence, but this old widow clearly has intelligence. I'm sure she's just a walking corpse. It seems like she used a special method to seal her soul in her own body. That's how she became a walking corpse with intelligence. She can live with her daughters without being suspected. Bao Bao said. So that old widow is the most suspicious. She's just a normal person. Where did she learn these sealing techniques? No matter how you think about it, it's not something a normal person can do. Han Xia said in a serious tone. By the way, Bao Bao, did you see or hear what the old widow said when she met with Lai Yi? Han Jiang turned to ask Bao Bao. Well, I didn't hear what they said, but I saw Lai Yi give the old widow a small bottle of blood. After the old widow drank the blood, she immediately returned to normal. She became exactly like a normal human. What kind of blood is that? It's so powerful. Han Xia, who didn't know much about this, asked Bao Bao in surprise. It should be corpse-raising blood. In the ancient Eastern countries, there's a profession called corpse controlling. Their blood can raise corpses. As long as a corpse drinks their blood, there's a chance it can evolve into a high-level corpse creature. It can also prevent the corpse from rotting. Even a rotting corpse can return to normal after drinking their blood. As long as it's a corpse creature, drinking their blood will bring great benefits. At the same time, their blood can be used to contract corpse-type creatures. From low-level walking corpses to high-level corpse spirits, they can be contracted successfully. Bao Bao was indeed a mythical beast with a powerful inheritance. There were many unorthodox things in her inheritance. The sisters hated Lei so much that they clenched their teeth. So Mother often goes out in the middle of the night to find Lei. She and Lei are such a good match. One of them is willing to let the whole village accompany her in this isolated place for her own happiness. 20 years of our youth is buried here. And our good mother is even better. In order to prevent her daughter from getting married, she would rather lock her daughter in a place isolated from the rest of the world. What have we done wrong? Why? Why are they doing this to us? The elder sister was so agitated that she wanted to rush up to her mother and ask her if she and her sister were really her mother's biological daughters. Would a biological mother treat her own daughter like this? Although they were agitated, the sisters restrained themselves from crying. They did not forget that they were outside their home. If they cried here, it would arouse their mother's suspicion. I have another question for you. Why are the outsiders treating you villagers so strangely? They don't seem willing to have any conflict with the villagers. They are even afraid of you. Why is that? This was what Han Xia could not figure out the most. As powerful swordmasters, why would they be afraid of a group of ordinary villagers? There was no reason for them to be perfect. When the outsiders appeared in the village, my mother planted a goo worm in them. If they don't listen to her, the goo worm will activate. The pain will make them wish they were dead. That's why the outsiders don't dare to provoke us. Her elder sister was no longer around. She did not care if this was a secret of the village. She just wanted to leave this place and see the person she loved again. Goo worm. Then don't we have it in our bodies too? Han Xia was frightened. She wanted to vomit when she thought of the lively goo worm in her stomach. She felt uncomfortable all over. The villagers have not found a chance to plant the goo worm in you. In addition, all of you have been more polite during this period of time. Unlike those adventurers who wanted us to be their cattle and horses the moment we came here. So the villagers don't have to give you bugs, unless one day you are like those people and do something harmful to the village. The elder sister said. That's good. That's good. Han Xia felt like she had crawled back from hell. Sure enough, without the goo worm, her body was light. Every pore in her body felt happy. Before Fengwu and her elder sister left, the two sisters said that once their mother left, they would inform them to come here to find the sacred artifact used for the seal. The two sisters were ordinary people. Even if there was a sacred artifact in front of them, they would not recognize it. Therefore, the matter of finding the sacred artifact could only fall on the heads of Fengwu and the other three. After the two sisters finished talking with Fengwu and the others, they picked some vegetables from the vegetable field and went back. As soon as they walked into the hall, they saw their mother, who was always locked in the room and rarely went out, sitting on the bench in the middle of the hall. What's the matter, mother? Why did you come out today? Because of the old widow's strength. The relationship between the mother and daughters was only faint. The two sisters greeted the old widow calmly as usual. What did those two outsiders ask you about? The old widow's voice was hoarse and unpleasant, making people feel uncomfortable. Nothing. They came to ask if we knew any clues to get out. They also asked about some things in the village. I picked what I could say and told her. I did not mention anything that I could not say. The elder sister lied without changing her expression. In the future, if those outsiders ask you anything, you don't have to pay attention to them. People who have just come are like this. They always want to find a way to leave here. If we could leave, our village would not be trapped here. The old widow did not say anything more to her two daughters. She told them to ignore those outsiders and went back to her room. The two sisters exchanged a look. They carried the fresh vegetables they had just picked and went into the kitchen to cook. Chapter 6:11. After chatting with Feng Wu and the others, the two sisters went to pick some vegetables from the vegetable field. As soon as they walked into the living room, they saw their mother, who rarely went out, sitting on the bench in the middle of the living room with an expressionless face. "What's wrong, Mother? Why did you come out today?" The mother and daughters were not very close to each other, because of the old widow's strong personality. The two sisters greeted the old widow calmly as usual. "What did the two outsiders ask you about?" The old widow's voice was hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. It was unpleasant to hear. "Nothing, they asked us if we knew how to get out of here. They also asked us about some things in the village. I told them what I could, but I didn't mention anything that I couldn't." The elder sister lied without changing her expression. "Don't bother about what the outsiders ask you in the future. People who just come here are always trying to find a way to get out of here. If we could get out of here, our village wouldn't be trapped here." The old widow did not say anything more to her two daughters. She told them to ignore the outsiders and went back to her room. The two sisters exchanged glances. They carried the fresh vegetables they had just picked and went into the kitchen to cook. After cooking as usual, they sent the food to the old widow's room. The old widow didn't suspect that her two daughters already knew what was going on. She calmly poured the food that her two daughters had cooked for her own babies. Men are all bad. Even their daughters are unreliable. Just because they met a man, they don't want to work hard to raise them. Fortunately, I still have you. You are my babies who will never betray me. The old widow's voice had a creepy darkness. She was smiling coldly and contentedly in the room. Ajur and the others divided into two teams. One team stayed at Lei's house, and the other team stayed near the old widow's house. They had to get their hands on the space detector as soon as they had the chance. Han Xia chose to stay at Lei's house because she was afraid of insects. Han Jiang could not let his sister do something dangerous alone, so he chose to stay with his sister. On the other hand, Feng Wu and Ajur had been paying attention to the old widow's family. Finally, on the night of another full moon, Feng Wu and Ajur's poor sisters entered the old widow's room after she left. They found a mirror in the room. Although the mirror's light was restrained, Ajur was sure that it was the sacred relic that sealed the village. Now that he had found the spatial sacred artifact, Ajur didn't waste any time. He injected magic into it, wanting to undo the seal. Take a rest and release the seal. The newcomers were the old widow and Lai Yi. It was unknown where Lai Yi had refined two bronze corpses. These bronze corpses were of a higher level than the walking corpses. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, who would have thought that such a gentle and virtuous woman was actually a corpse controller? Looking at her appearance, it was obvious that she had been practicing corpse control for some time. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to control the copper corpse. It was just two copper corpses. They were nothing to Feng Wu. With Xiaoqun in hand, she chopped the indestructible copper corpses into pieces with a few slashes. Lai Yi looked at Feng Wu with a ferocious expression. She had spent several years refining these copper corpses. Of course, she didn't use the corpses of the villagers, but the corpses of the outsiders who had accidentally fallen into this place. Most of the people who came here were adventurers who wanted to investigate the mystery of Flood Village's disappearance. The bodies of adventurers were very powerful, so it was best to refine them into copper corpses. She didn't expect the copper corpse she had placed high hopes on to be easily chopped into pieces by the girl. Lai Yi was so angry that she was about to go crazy. Anyone who had worked hard for several years to refine a treasure was so easily destroyed. The old widow stretched out her ferocious claws and pounced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu pierced the old widow's heart with her sword, but the old widow was already a dead person. To the living, the heart was a weakness, but to the dead it was nothing. The old widow, whose heart had been pierced, continued to attack Feng Wu like a madwoman. Feng Wu calmly blocked with her sword and used Xiaoqun's purifying power. The sword with the purifying power stabbed into the old widow's body. The old widow could only let out a scream before she was forcefully purified and sent away by Feng Wu. When Lai Yi saw the old widow being easily destroyed by Feng Wu, she collapsed to the ground and knelt down. Why? Why did you come to disturb our lives? We're just a family living a peaceful and happy life. Why did you adventurers come to destroy us? The happiness you want is to drag the entire village into this isolated place, never to leave, trapped here forever. This is the happiness you want, but is this what others want? Have you asked the others? What did the other villagers do wrong? For your happiness, they sacrificed 20 years of their lives to be imprisoned in this place. 20 years. How many 20 years in a person's life can be squandered like this? Han Jiang said in a deep voice with a face of disgust. The pitiful sisters hugged each other and cried bitterly. It was unknown whether they were crying for their dead mother or for the 20 years of their youth that they had lost. At the original location of Hong Village, many people from the Star Hall were thinking of ways to break the space sacred artifact. Sacred artifacts were rare, and space-type ones were even rarer. It would take a lot of time to break open the space condensed by a sacred artifact. The space warlock saint thought hard for a few days and discussed with a few other space-type old fellows for a few days before finally coming up with a feasible method. Just as he was about to break the seal, a dazzling light suddenly appeared at the original location of Hong Village. After the light faded, rows of farmhouses suddenly appeared at the original location of Hong Village, as well as fields. This is Hong Village. Hong Village is back. Mom, where are you? A group orange warrior from the Star Hall suddenly shouted and rushed into Hong Village. The people beside him couldn't hold him back. This man was about 30 years old. He was originally a villager of Hong Village. 20 years ago, he was accepted by the Notre Dame du Starlight because of his good aptitude. After that, he lived in the school and only returned during the holidays. Who would have thought that when he finally had a holiday and could go back to see his mother, the entire village, and the fields that the villagers usually used for farming had all disappeared. He searched everywhere like a madman but couldn't find her. Later on, in order to find out the secret of Hong Village's disappearance, he entered the Star Hall. After a few years of hard work, he had already become a member of the Orange Group. This time, when he heard that the place where the incident happened was the original location of Hong Village, he immediately applied to come over. He didn't expect that today, 20 years later, he could finally go home and see his family. This man rushed back to his home. His family hugged their heads and cried. The others were also shocked by this sudden surprise. They didn't expect that they would return here one day. The villagers were crying tears of joy, but Lai Ye's husband brought their children to look for his wife. When the villagers learned that the people who sealed the village were actually Lai Yi and the old widow, they were all shocked. The villagers didn't even think of their own people. After all, everyone knew the background of the people around them. Who would have thought that the people around them were so capable that they could seal the entire village? It was impossible for the villagers to say that they didn't hate Lai Yi. However, the village chief and his wife, as well as Lai Ye's husband, knelt down and begged for mercy, hoping that the villagers could forgive Lai Yi. If the bully hadn't forced her, the kind-hearted Lai Yi wouldn't have agreed to such a crazy thing the old widow did to protect her happiness. Yes, the old widow was the one who suggested sealing the village. Even the sacred artifact was brought by her. The old widow's family used to be a large family before its decline, but in her generation, not a single child had the aptitude to cultivate. As such, the old widow found a man and married him. The man turned out to be the father of the two sisters. Unfortunately, she had met the wrong man this time. The man only wanted the good stuff that her family had left behind. He wasn't serious about marrying her. The man had already married another woman outside. That woman was his true love, and the old widow was only a tool for him to acquire her family's fortune. Because of an accident, the old widow found out that her husband had another wife outside. Moreover, he married her in order to earn a property for that woman and their son. When the man saw the three of them living happily together, he spoke to the woman gently in a way that he had never shown her before. The old widow swore that she would get her revenge on the man who had used her. The man knew the old widow might have some precious magic equipment hidden in her house, but the old widow was a cautious woman. She would never tell anyone where the magic equipment was hidden. The man could not do anything to her since she was so tight-lipped. This time, she used the excuse of giving the magic equipment to the man as a warning to prepare a feast for him. The man ended up eating the food with a venomous insect that she had specially made. Then there was the mother and son. She purposely put poison in one of the potted flowers that the woman bought when she was buying flowers, making the mother and son suffer a fate worse than death. In the end, the old widow cut off the flesh of the mother and son piece by piece in front of the man and roasted them over the fire. Then she stuffed the meat into the man's mouth and let him eat it bite by bite. In the end, that man also died in the hands of the old widow. No matter how much he begged and how much he begged for her forgiveness, the old widow killed him mercilessly. From then on, the old widow no longer believed in men. She took her daughter to Hong Village and gave birth to her in Hong Village. These were the old widow's experiences. The old widow had told Lai Yi about them in person. Normally, ordinary people were unable to activate a sacred weapon, but she had a secret method to activate it at the cost of her lifespan. Before she activated the sacred weapon, she had used a special method to lock her soul in her body. As long as Lai Yi was willing to use her blood to wake her up after she died, she would be able to come back to life in a different way. Lai Yi agreed to the old widow's request in order to escape the fate of marrying someone she did not love. She also kept her promise and brought the old widow back to life. From then on, she would deliver her blood to the old widow every full moon. Her blood was the only way the old widow's flesh would never decay. Chapter 6:12. This was the old widow's experience, and she had told Lai Yi about it herself. Ordinary people couldn't activate the sacred artifact, but she had a secret method to use her lifespan to activate it. Before the sacred artifact was activated, she used a special method to lock her soul in her body. As long as Lai Yi was willing to use her blood to wake her up after she died, she could come back to life in another way. In order to escape the fate of being married to someone she didn't love, Lai Yi agreed and kept her promise, reviving the old widow. From then on, every full moon night, she would deliver her blood to the old widow. With her blood, the old widow's body would not rot and die. The two of them kept this secret for 20 years, and no one knew about it. Later on, when she interacted with the old widow more, the old widow taught her the art of corpse control, and said that she had a rare talent for corpse control. Lai Yi didn't want to cry helplessly at home like last time. She hoped to protect herself and never be bullied by those strong people again. Because of this wish, Lai Yi learned the art of control. She didn't mind even if she had to work with corpses in the future. As long as she could become stronger, nothing else mattered. What happened after that was as everyone knew. After listening to Lai Yi's story, they realized that there was a reason why their mother hated men so much. Lai Yi had always thought that her mother hated men so much because her father had abandoned the three of them. It turned out that her father had died long ago and was killed by her mother. They had no right to comment on the grudges of the previous generation. They hoped that their mother could meet a good man in her next life, and not suffer as much as she did in this life. The two sisters decided to build a tomb for their mother. No matter how she was when she was alive, she still had to be buried in peace after death. Although the old widow had sealed the entire village in the past, she was now dead. A dead person was like an extinguished lamp. There was no need to hold on to the past. The kind-hearted villagers did not blame the two sisters. If one were to ask who had suffered the most in the past 20 years, it would undoubtedly be the two sisters. They had already suffered for 20 years. How could the villagers have the heart to blame these two pitiful women? The matter of Hong Village had come to an end. Feng Wu and Ajur went back to the Star Hall to report on the completion of the mission. After that, they went back to the school to rest. In the past few days that Feng Wu had been missing, Mingxi had been worried sick. After the high priest's divination told him that Feng Wu was not in danger, he was slightly relieved. Although the high priest said that there was no danger, as long as he could not see her, he would not be able to completely relax. Fortunately, Feng Wu finally contacted him today, which made Mingxi feel relieved. After hearing about Feng Wu's experience in the past few days, Mingxi felt that it was not safe to do a clerical job. Feng Wu and Mingxi chatted for a long time before resting. The next day, they went to report to the document processing room as usual. She had just walked into the office when she heard Han Xia's voice. Han Xia rushed over and held Feng Wu's hand. "Little Wu, let me tell you, the lover that the sisters have always loved is also unmarried. The two of them have waited for the sisters for 20 years. I'm so touched. If there's a man who can wait for me for 20 years, I'd be willing to sacrifice a few years of my life." Han Xia said with a face full of envy. "How do you know?" Feng Wu blinked curiously. "I went to the village this morning to take a look. I heard from the villagers that the two men appeared yesterday when they heard the news. They even saved the sisters' marriage on the spot. I heard that the scene at that time was so touching. This morning, the sisters decided to donate the Space Sacred Tool to the Star Hall. The Space Sacred Tool is the sisters' heirloom. However, this sacred tool has been exposed, so there is no benefit in keeping it with them. They can make such a choice, which means that they are very rational. The Star Hall gave the sisters a reward of 100,000 gold coins each. With this money, they can start a new life." Han Xia was very happy for the sisters. Although they had been deprived of 20 years of their youth, one of them had a man who truly loved them and waited for them for 20 years. These sisters may be unfortunate people, but they were also the happiest people. The matter in Hong Village was finally over. Feng Wu and the others began their normal work life. Every day was full and happy. In a place that Feng Wu did not know, Zicheng had finally completed the restoration of the demon ancestor's body. The demon ancestor was about to descend on Heavenly Wind continent. This would bring about the greatest catastrophe to the continent. And all of this, except for Irene, who might have guessed a little, no one else knew. Irene wanted to stop the female lead, but the demon ancestor had almost recovered. Irene really did not want to appear in front of the demon ancestor and court death. Finally, one day, the demon ancestor announced his arrival again. He began a large-scale massacre. Many small islands were hit by his magic and sank to the bottom of the sea. When Zicheng saw the demon ancestor mercilessly kill so many people, he realized that he had been deceived. He had never thought of returning to the demon world to live. He wanted to take over the human world and turn it into another demon world. How could it be possible for a person who had been an emperor to become a commoner in the devil realm? She had thought wrongly. She should not have trusted a demon so easily. The problem now was that if people knew that she had released this demon, she would definitely become the public enemy of the continent. She did not want to end up like that, so as long as she killed the devil ancestor, she would be able to bury this secret forever. Zicheng had already decided to kill the demon ancestor. In this life, she decided to kill the demon ancestor, so that this secret would never be known by others. When Irene heard the news of the demon ancestor's birth, she roughly knew what was going on. She would not let the female lead become the savior of the world. So, she secretly wrote a letter to expose the female lead's crime of releasing the demon lord's primordial spirit. In the letter, she wrote very clearly about how the female lead had been helping the demon lord find his physical body for the past 2 years. The female lead's whereabouts could be found. The Star Hall investigated the female lead. In the end, the results of the investigation were consistent with the letter. Zicheng, the female lead, was immediately placed on the continent's wanted list. The entire continent knew that she was a sinner of the human race. Zicheng did not think that she would be found out so easily. She even wanted to kill the demon ancestor, so that the truth would be buried forever. But now she did not have the chance. Since that was the case, she should consider standing on the demon ancestor's side. As long as she stood at the peak of the Heavenly Wind continent, no one would say a word about her. She immediately contacted the demon ancestor. The two of them easily formed an alliance. Caesar received a message from Zicheng. She needed a sacred weapon to save her life. But sacred weapons were hard to come by. Even if he was the clan's future leader, he did not have the right to take away the sacred weapon. Helpless to help Zicheng, Caesar secretly went to steal the sacred weapon in the middle of the night. Fortunately, Xiazhua had already guessed that Caesar would do this. When he fell in love with Zicheng, he knew that his brother would eventually walk the same path as before. Xiazhua had already informed the clan leader about Caesar. Caesar's act of stealing the sacred weapon for a woman had angered the entire clan. Originally, according to the clan's rules, Caesar should have been executed. But the clan leader could not bear it. He only crippled his cultivation and expelled him from the clan. When Caesar left, he looked at Xiazhua with eyes full of hatred. He knew that it was because Xiazhua had reported him. That was why the people in the clan knew that he was going to steal the sacred weapon. Brother Caesar, here is some money. Take it and leave. Don't go see Zicheng again. She will eventually harm you. Xiazhua could not bear to see his brother lose everything. So he prepared some money and property in the hopes that Caesar could live a better life. But Caesar did not intend to accept his kindness. I don't need your fake kindness. You spent so much effort to get rid of me. Isn't it all for the clan leader's position? You have waited so long for this day. Caesar waved his hand and slapped away the crystal card Xiazhua had given him. He would rather die than accept charity from the enemy who had harmed him. He slapped away the card Xiazhua had given him and left the place he had grown up in without looking back. Caesar disappeared. Xiazhua knew that he would meet Zicheng again. To be honest, he did not want Xiazhua to be entangled with Zicheng again. It would only cause him to be doomed. But Caesar would not listen to him, or say goodbye, and then he and Caesar would become real enemies. Fengwu didn't know what had happened. No one could guess the direction of the plot now, just like how Aaron didn't expect Zicheng to choose to join forces with the demon ancestor to destroy this world after being wanted by the entire continent. Zicheng would always have points if he had something good. With Demon Alpha by his side, Zicheng would never lack points. Everything that was happening was far away from the Fengwu girl. She did her work in Star Hall every day. Sometimes she would go out with her friends and eat together. Her life was very easy. Mingxi and the other 3 monarchs began to prepare for battle. They were the strongest defensive force in the human world. If the 4 monarchs combined their powers, it wasn't impossible to defeat the Devil Emperor. Fengwu knew that Mingxi was very busy. Their conversation time had changed from an hour to 10 minutes a day, or once every 2 or 3 days. Ajur said that she was preparing to go to the battlefield. This time, when the demon ancestor attacked, the 2 people from Star Hall and Starlight Academy could not take the initiative to interfere. Only the 4 imperial emperors could stop the demon ancestor. The 4 emperors had the bloodline of gods. If their bloodline power was fully developed, they might not necessarily lose to the ancestor of the devil realm. The 4 seasons saint emissaries began to move. In this battle, the 4 saints would participate. Demon Alpha's supreme magic had created a group of demon generals. The 4 seasons saint emissaries had to destroy these enemies. The entire Heavenly Wind continent began to sound the war horn. Every place was preparing for war. Even the clerks had to go to the front lines to record the war. Chapter 6:13. Fengwu knew that Mingxi was very busy. Their conversation time had been reduced from an hour to 10 minutes a day, or once every 2 or 3 days. Ajur said that she was preparing to go to the battlefield. This time, when the demon ancestor attacked, the 2 people from Star Hall and Starlight Academy could not take the initiative to interfere. Only the 4 imperial emperors could stop the demon ancestor. The 4 emperors had the blood of gods. If their blood power was fully developed, they would not necessarily lose to the Demon Alpha. The 4 seasons saint emissaries also began to move. In this battle, the 4 seasons saint emissaries had to participate. The Demon Alpha's supreme magic had created a group of demon generals. The 4 seasons saint emissaries had to destroy these enemies. The entire Heavenly Wind continent began to sound the horn of war. Every place was preparing for war. Even the clerks had to go to the front lines to record the progress of the war. Fengwu was a newcomer, so it was impossible for her to be sent to record such an important event. The newcomers were not as experienced as the seniors. They knew what to do to avoid danger. Fengwu stayed at the back. Every day she sat in the office with Bao Bao in a daze. All the seniors had been sent out. Only the small fry remained in the office. Fengwu did not know what to do. She decided to go to the ethereal plane to find her master. She had found most of the materials for her master's body. Even the last material had been found by Mingxi. It was time to help her master rebuild his body. In the ethereal plane, Fengwu brought out her master's soul. Then, according to what her master had taught her, She drew a magic circle. She threw all the materials into the magic circle. The magic circle began to burn with a pure white flame. The flame was not hot, but it was very dangerous. Following her master's instructions, she took one step at a time. Finally, after 2 hours, a body that looked exactly like Bai Lianfeng appeared in the magic circle. Fengwu looked at the body that had just been completed. She was very happy. After the body was completed, Bai Lianfeng's soul took the initiative to merge into the body. Moreover, the process of merging was quite fast. When Bai Lianfeng opened his eyes again, he had already returned to his original appearance, the appearance of a young man around 30 years old. Bai Lianfeng was originally a handsome and otherworldly man. After obtaining a real body, he became even more enchanting. Good Lan. Our master has finally returned to this world. Bai Lianfeng lovingly stroked her beloved disciple's head, extremely satisfied with her. Sure enough, his eyesight was good. He had accepted such a filial and good disciple, unlike those old fellows. What the hell did they accept? Not only were they unfilial, they even hated that they couldn't take all of their own master's things for themselves. Fortunately, he, Bai Lianfeng, had good eyesight and accepted such a good disciple who wasn't greedy for vanity. Master, did your cultivation not return? Fengwu asked worriedly. She felt that Bai Lianfeng was no different from an ordinary person. She couldn't feel any energy fluctuations from her body. Don't worry, Master has already made preparations. As he spoke, Bai Lianfeng took out a small dark green ball from somewhere. Although this small ball was transparent and cute, it contained a powerful energy that made people tremble. Just looking at it would make people feel an unparalleled pressure. This contains all of Master's cultivation. As long as I eat this bead, Master's cultivation will immediately return. Bai Lianfeng said calmly as he held the green bead in his hand. Then Master, quickly eat it. Fengwu didn't have any desire for this bead that contained all of her master's cultivation. She only wanted her master to quickly recover his original strength. Lanner is so obedient. Bai Lianfeng placed the green bead into his mouth. Although the bead was large, once it entered Bai Lianfeng's mouth, it melted into water and flowed down his throat into his stomach. The energy in the bead originally belonged to Bai Lianfeng. Bai Lianfeng could fuse with his own energy in a matter of minutes. In less than 5 minutes, the energy in the bead had already been completely fused with Bai Lianfeng. Moreover, the fusion this time didn't have any hidden dangers. After Bai Lianfeng's strength was completely recovered, he didn't stay for a moment longer. He said that he was going to meet the previous master of the demon realm. Fengwu could only take the steamed buns to eat to comfort herself. This was to comfort her heart that was hurt from being stood up by her master. They ate and drank for less than half an hour. Because the Fengwu girl had nothing to do, she was eating the entire time. The entire store knew that there was a mother and son who could eat a lot in the store. When the other customers saw the mother and son eating so much, they also bought some food to eat with them. This brought in quite a few customers to the store. Fengwu still didn't know that she had brought in a lot of customers. After she finished the last plate of food, she called for the waiter to settle the bill. Because of Fengwu's relationship, a group of customers was brought in, allowing the store to generate quite a bit of revenue. The boss decided to give Fengwu a 10% discount, and even gave her a 10% discount VIP card. Fengwu calmly accepted this VIP card. Who knew how many VIP cards she had already received? When she returned to the Star Hall, she found that there were very few people there. Fengwu didn't mind and brought the steamed buns around to play. These days of eating, drinking, and fooling around went on for a few days. Finally, after 10 days, news of victory spread. The ancestral devil had been vanquished. The one who vanquished the ancestral devil was a Dharma god who looked like an immortal. How could a mage god appear in the heavenly wind continent? He had already ascended to the god realm. What kind of joke was this? But it was a mage god. At that time, all the big shots present said that it was a mage god. There was no way to prove whether that white-robed youth was a mage god or not. Everyone only knew that he was extremely powerful. Originally, the 4 celestial emperors had the upper hand. However, a woman appeared out of nowhere. This woman's strength might not be on par with the supreme demon ancestor, But she had a lot of treasures on her. The treasures she took out gave the demon ancestor some time to breathe, and the 4 celestial emperors were a little tired. Fortunately, the white-robed youth appeared at this time. That white-robed youth was extremely good-looking. His entire body was dressed in white, and he was extremely good-looking. Compared to the Moon Emperor, Mingxi wasn't bad either. The most special thing about him was his ethereal aura, which was actually immortal-looking. One look at him would make one pregnant. This man who appeared at the last moment saved the entire continent. He was the savior of mankind. Then the white-robed youth became famous. Statues of him could be found all over the streets, from big to small. There were even some small islands that erected a statue of the white-robed youth. If one had nothing to do, one could worship it to ward off evil. By Lianfeng. You're the one who's warding off evil. Your whole family can ward off evil. Speaking of which, what happened that day? Mingxi and the other 3 celestial emperors joined forces, and the demon ancestor was no match for them. Who would have thought that Zicheng would come out and throw a purple ball? This ball wasn't anything else. It was the heavenly thunder of the 9th heaven that she had exchanged from the system. Any living thing that touched it would be destroyed. Fortunately, the 4 celestial emperors were protected by the world's consciousness. Like Zicheng, they were also the world's favorites. Furthermore, the 4 celestial emperors were much more important than the female lead. If you wanted to kill them, you would have to see if the world's consciousness allowed it. In order to stop the female lead, the unlucky Bai Lianfeng was tricked by the world's consciousness. The world's consciousness forcefully sent Bai Lianfeng, who had been watching the show and eating melon seeds, over. Then in the eyes of others, Bai Lianfeng saw that the 4 celestial emperors were in danger. She stepped on the rainbow and went to marry. Bah! She went to rescue them. The female lead was powerful because she had the system. In fact, the current female lead's strength was far from reaching its peak. Because of the relationship between the supporting female lead Irene and the reincarnated Xiazhua, these 2 people had snatched away one of the female lead's greatest golden fingers, the 5-element heart. After losing the 5-element heart, the female lead's cultivation speed naturally slowed down. In the original work, when the demon ancestor destroyed the world, the female lead already had the strength of a celestial mage. From this, it could be seen how great the impact of losing the 5-element star was on the female lead. Bai Lianfeng had already seen the things in the female lead system. Back then Longza Gamer, that scammer, was also able to take out some strange things from his body. This girl seemed to come from the same place as Longza. Should she greet her? 2 seconds later, Bai Lianfeng really extinguished this thought. Forget it. Anyway, she was going to die. There was no need to greet them. Anyway, they would never meet again. As a celestial mage, it was quite easy for Bai Lianfeng to kill a little trash that wasn't even a celestial mage. Furthermore, Shang still had the thing that Longza gave her. In the end, the female lead, Zicheng, was careless and died in Bai Lianfeng's hands. When the female lead died, the system immediately wanted to escape. Bai Lianfeng grabbed this thing called the system and crushed it in her hand. Not even a speck of it was left. Without the female lead causing trouble, the demon ancestor was quickly taken care of by the 4 great emperors. He stood in the distance and watched Bai Lianfeng tear apart the female lead and choke the system to death with one hand. The worship in his heart was like a continuous river. At this moment, she only wanted to say one thing. From now on, you are my male god. My male god, I want to give birth to a monkey with you. Bai Lianfeng was in a bad mood after being tricked by the world's consciousness. She turned around and ran away. Those people who wanted to thank her for her help searched the surroundings a few times, but couldn't find her. Although they couldn't find her, the scene was recorded. This scene became an unforgettable classic of the heavenly wind continent. Chapter 614. Bai Lianfeng was not in a good mood after being tricked by the world's consciousness. She turned and ran away. The people who wanted to thank her for her help searched the area, but could not find her. Although they could not find her, the scene was recorded. This scene became an unforgettable classic in the heavenly wind continent. The female lead was killed by Bai Lianfeng. After losing Zicheng's help, the demon ancestor's strength was greatly reduced. Without Zicheng's treasures, the 4 great emperors were not to be trifled with. In the human world, the 4 of them were the favorites of the world's consciousness. Naturally, they would not let the demon ancestor take them away. The demon ancestor should have been killed. Unfortunately, although the 4 great emperors could resist the demon ancestor, they could not completely destroy him. The best result would be to seal his primordial spirit back into the mirage. Fortunately, the demon king intervened and suggested to bring the demon ancestor back to the demon world and imprison him there forever. This was a good thing for the heavenly wind continent. With the demon king's help, it would be impossible for the demon ancestor to escape to the human world to stir up trouble. In the end, the demon king sent his trusted aides to take away the demon ancestor's body and primordial spirit. The female lead, on the other hand, died. The female lead had died, and the system had been destroyed by Lianfeng. Those people who were loyal to Zicheng because of the favorability system had all woken up. When the female lead died, Caesar finally regained his original nature. When he thought of all the things he had done for Zicheng during this period of time, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. His eyes were filled with anger and regret. This is not your fault. You had no choice. After Zicheng died, Shozo immediately found Caesar and wanted him to return to the family. Did you already know that Zicheng was problematic? Caesar remembered that Shozo had hinted to him many times that he should not trust Zicheng too much. However, he was too confident at that time. He did not believe that Zicheng could do anything to him. He did not take Shozo's warning to heart. Yes, I knew. Shozo sighed softly. He looked at his once proud brother with a complicated expression. He slowly opened his mouth and told Caesar about his experience in the future 100 years later. He didn't say anything before because he was afraid that Caesar would fall into Zicheng's trap. If Zicheng told Zicheng about him, he would be in a passive position in the future. In order to ensure that he could successfully complete the mission of saving the world, he didn't even tell his family about his rebirth. I see. Caesar nodded. He did not expect that no matter which future it was, he could not escape the fate of being controlled by Zicheng. Fortunately, the world in this life would not be destroyed because of him and Zicheng, so this world could be preserved. If Xiazhua had told him this before, he probably wouldn't have believed him. But after everything that had happened, no one knew better than him about the abnormalities in his body. Zicheng indeed had the power to control people's hearts. He also believed that if Zicheng had obtained the heart of 5 elements, he would not have returned it to Heavenly Wind just because he was about to ascend to the God realm. Although she looked kind and gentle, she was actually a cruel person. Brother, everything is over now. Come back with me. Father and mother miss you very much. Elisa has been waiting for you. Come back with me. Xiazhua looked deeply at his brother. He still had a lingering hatred for Zicheng in his heart. If it wasn't for her, his brother wouldn't have become what he was now. Wouldn't it be too easy for her to die just like that? Shozo thought for a while before giving up. She was already dead. Even if he wanted to whip her corpse, he had to have a corpse to whip first. I don't want to go back yet. Too many things have happened. My mind is in a mess. I need some time to sort things out. Actually, Caesar did not know how to face his family and his fiancée Elisa. Brother. Shozo wanted to persuade him again, but Caesar waved his hand. You don't have to say anything. I really need some time. As for Elisa, we are not suitable for each other. I know you like her. Work hard, brother. Elisa is a good girl. You two are very compatible. Brother, where are you going? Shozo wanted to chase after Caesar when he saw that he was about to leave. Don't chase after me. Let me be alone for a while. When I think it through, I will go back. After saying that, Caesar waved his hand and left without looking back. Shozo looked at his brother's back and sighed. Brother Caesar, remember to go back soon. 10 years later. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. In these 10 years, many things had changed. For example, Fengwu had finally married Mingxi. Just like what she said when they first met, she had made Mingxi the father of her child. Now, apart from Xiaoyi, the two of them still did not have any other children. Mingxi and Fengwu were still very young. A mage's lifespan was very long. They were not in a hurry to have children. Mingxi was very satisfied with the two of them. Perhaps in another 10 years, he would let their first child come into the world. After all, he was the Moon Emperor. It was impossible for him to not have an heir. Giving birth to the next generation of heirs was also one of the jobs of the Moon Emperor. Probably because the two of them had been married for 7 years. Outsiders did not realize that the Moon Empress was actually an adorable girl. In the hearts of all the subjects, their Moon Empress was a noble and cold beauty. Who would have thought that the so-called noble and cold beauty was all made up by their own imaginations? The Fengwu girl had adapted well to her new identity. If someone asked her what she needed to do as the Moon Empress, she would tell them that she was noble and cold in front of others, with a poker face, but in private, she did what she needed to do. Anyway, the Moon Empress' job was quite simple. She only needed to receive the madams who came to pay their respects on a few special and important days every year. Other than that, she basically had nothing special to do. The previous Moon Empress liked Xiao Wu very much. Now the former Moon Emperor and the former Moon Empress were living a life of traveling around. When the two of them came to a beautiful place, they would stay for a period of time. Then, when they had seen enough of the scenery, they would go to the next place. Their days were very comfortable. Skycliff was still guarding Mingxi these few years. He had become the new leader of the Moon Shadow Knights, and was in charge of protecting Mingxi's safety. Ajur had already become a qualified Star Hall saint, but he was still single. It was said that no girl had caught his eye. Mo Gue used 10 years to become a purple warrior. He had finally achieved his dream of becoming a Star Hall warrior of the highest rank. Fengwu's roommates had also found good homes. After graduation, Silda had been admitted to the Star Hall, and became a member of the Star Hall. 10 years had passed, and she had become a Cyan warrior from a newbie who knew nothing. After graduating, Anika returned to her family, and married her boyfriend whom she met in the Star Hall. Now they were living happily. It was said that their first son had been born. Fengwu was even invited to attend the child's full moon ceremony. Now that she was the Moon Empress, Fengwu naturally couldn't attend such a private family event. However, she still sent a gift. As for Rika, the girl who didn't get along with Fengwu, after 10 years, she was no longer the arrogant girl she used to be. She had changed a lot. In the 5th year of her studies at Notre Dame du Starlight, she applied to transfer to a seminary. After graduation, she swore to give up marriage and love and became a glorious Star Hall saint. Now, she would occasionally go to the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom for work, but she could still chat with Fengwu peacefully. Fengwu's master, by Lianfeng, had become too popular after becoming the savior of the world. He ascended without saying a word. After attending Fengwu's wedding, he ascended to the divine realm, and went to find his good friend, Longsgamer. As the female lead, Irene got married in the 3rd year of her graduation. The person she married was Fengwu's brother, Feng Juntian. This was another pot of melodrama. As for the reincarnated Chazal, he finally married Elisa in the 4th year after Caesar left. The two of them became an enviable couple. As for Caesar, he finally returned to his family after disappearing for 6 years. Knowing that Caesar's changes were caused by Zicheng, Caesar's family members had already forgiven him. Chazal wasn't interested in becoming the head of the family. In the end, Caesar became the head of the family. Caesar's strength had already recovered and surpassed his original level. His genius halo hadn't disappeared. He was still the genius young master that all the family members looked up to. There was another important person that had to be mentioned. It was Fengwu's son, Little Bun Fengyi. The original Little Bun had already grown up. Now Fengyi was already a 14-year-old youth. When Fengyi was 12, a group of elves came to welcome him, the Elf King. These elves were all created by Fengyi. In his previous life, Fengyi returned to the origin to save the world. These elves also turned into seeds, quietly waiting for their king to return. Finally, when Fengyi was 12, these elves all recovered. Although they had lost their original memories like Fengyi, they instinctively found Fengyi, the reincarnated Elf King. The elves had lost their memories. They didn't inherit Fengyi's strength from his previous life. If there was no one to guide and teach them how to use their strength, This family of simple-minded elves would become the target of some ugly people. Although Feng Yi didn't want to go back to being the elf king, he still returned to the tree of life where the elves lived. He wanted to teach these elves how to cultivate and how to survive. After these guys learned everything, he would choose a new king and then go out to roam the world. Everyone had found their own place, doing what they wanted to do and were willing to do. They had also found their own happiness. After another 10 years, Feng Wu's first child came into this world. This was a little boy who was as beautiful as his father. Feng Wu hugged the little guy. She was very interested in this little bun who could already open his eyes and look around. Xiao Wu, it's been hard on you. Mingxi stayed by her side and kissed her sweaty hair with a pained expression. Where's little Yi? Seeing that her eldest son didn't come to see her, Feng Wu was a little unhappy. He went to make something delicious for you. Mingxi tapped her nose and smiled faintly. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. She liked little Ye's cooking the most. I miss master. Thinking of her master who she hadn't seen for a long time, Feng Wu blinked her eyes in grievance. The Feng Wu girl couldn't understand her master's actions of abandoning her and running off to the heavens. Good girl, we'll meet again. Your strength is already very close to that of a warlock saint. As long as we reach the realm of a warlock god, we can go to the realm of the gods to find your master. Mingxi patted his wife's head and said with a doting expression, okay. Thinking that she could see her master again, Feng Wu's mood finally improved. The husband and wife quietly leaned against each other and looked at their newborn son. Time didn't have any effect on them. The people of the Silver Moon Ancient Kingdom were nourished by the moonlight and aged very slowly. Although 20 years had already passed, this couple still looked exactly the same as when they were young. This was the advantage of the magical world. As long as one had enough strength, one's lifespan would get longer and longer. Of course, one wouldn't age. Mingxi and Feng Wu played with the little fellow's hands together. The little fellow giggled very happily, and especially liked the smell of his mother's body. Mother, come and drink some soup. Feng Yi had already grown into an unforgettable handsome young man. He walked into the room steadily with a bowl of soup. That's right, there was only one bowl of soup. How could one bowl be enough for a glutton like Feng Wu? Feng Wu smelled the fragrance and directly pushed the child to the child's father. She moved the small table over and signaled Feng Yi to quickly bring the soup over. Little bun. Blinking aggrievedly. Am I your biological son? Feng Yi smiled at his younger brother. Mother is mine. Don't think that you can monopolize mother's love just because you're young. Little bun. Angry bad guy, you're definitely not my biological brother. Definitely not. Mingxi. He didn't see anything. The end. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.